testing.
Yeah. I want to ask you about, especially, the relationship aspect of the new album, and how I know you said it's a peace offering, the whole dialogue.
Excuse me. Hello? Okay, that's fine. What else? Look, I'm going to be on air, so probably you shouldn't ring. And if there's something important, write it down on paper and you bring it yourself, okay? And Neil? Okay, well, I'll call later, so that's all right. The only thing that I want to make sure is that Jane is reachable later, in an hour's time, okay? Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, bye. Okay, so I think, because otherwise he'll just be constantly buzzing. All right, go ahead.
The dialogue aspect of the new album, in terms of your relationship, every man-woman relationship going on, how does that work? How do you see that?
Well, both Joan and I felt that this is a time that dialogue is necessary between men and women again. And of course, in the 60s, there was a sexual revolution, and everybody was all excited about it, but then it turned out to be a sexual revolution for men and not for women. And so women started to feel very resentful and felt like they were used, for their revolution or whatever. And so in the 70s, there was a big sort of a backlash of that, and of course we were all feminists and whatnot, And I think the feminist movement is still going in the sense that it's being digested very well in the society, so that you don't have to wave flags anymore, and it seeps into people's subconscious, so to speak. So it's there, But at the same time, the family system broke down, and a lot of tragedies happened in result of the fact that we did not have a proper dialogue. And I think it's time that we would come back together again. But at the same time, it has to be that men would extend their hands to us, because in a way, it's their turn, to understand the situation and say, hey, let's start all over again, And in starting over, that's what Joan is saying, though it's a song that's written to me. But, it is to his woman, but in fact he is addressing to all women, And I think it's beautiful. And so each time when I hear that song, I feel like choking up again, And 80s is probably going to be, and I'm very optimistic about that we're going to start a dialogue all over again, which will be beautiful.
Do you think any man can take that song, starting over, and play it to his woman?
Oh, yes, of course, And every man, I'm sure, has a good reason to do that. So, and in a way, so it's, I call it a political song, and of course, political sounds crazy and social. How do you call it? But, it's a love song, but at the same time, love is the only thing that is going to change the society in that sense. I think love is a very powerful political weapon as well, and I think that if we go on like this, we have a choice of becoming used by the capitalist society, in the sense that we'll all become these components of the capitalist society, and finally be replaced by the computers, Or we'll just stand up and have a human renaissance, just say, we're human again. We want to reach each other and hold each other and become human again,
So
Because otherwise, there's no reason we shouldn't be replaced by clones. What's the difference?
Do you think we're ready for a renaissance? Do you think love has been passé, say, for the last decade, and suddenly we're...
Oh, definitely. And also, under the name of freedom, people wanted to not have dialogue with each other. They just wanted to just hang around being, single kind of thing. But, it's good to... And I'm not promoting marriage or anything. I'm just talking about marriage of the soul, the mind, sort of exchange of spirit and soul, which you can have with women or men. And it would be nice, because after all, this society is created by men and women, and the propagation is the basis of the society and everything still, you know. So that it's nice to have a dialogue between two sexes.
Do you think it's, you know, if Werner Erhard talks about commitment, being more than if people get married or decide to stay together, it's committed. The fact that you have a legal document doesn't really mean anything. In a society that's almost a throwaway, everything disappears quickly and we have something new to replace it. Do you think that's part of that problem is people just trying to, of being able to say, I'm committing myself to someone else? Do you think that's...
Well, commitment is a strange word, you know. I'd like to replace that word with love and trust and things like that. Because, I mean, you can have... when somebody would commit, you know, to that sort of relationship or something, they don't have to do it on the level of society legally. I don't think it has nothing to do with that. But there's a certain ritual that would mean something. You know, for instance, if you said that you're going to really love somebody for better or for worse or something, then that means something. Because it's a ritual, all words mean something. And when you say something, that becomes a fact, you know, reality in the future. So in that sense, maybe that's a commitment, you know.
Would you say then that your marriage, rather than being a commitment, is more of a spiritual bond?
Yes, there's a spiritual bond that has nothing to do with legal paper. Yeah.
How, I know this seems like a silly question, but how do you recognize or realize a spiritual bond? What was it between you and John that led you to realize this is somebody I'm connected with?
Well, no, it was bigger than both of us, in a sense. I mean, we didn't try to be together, and also we're still not trying to be together or anything like that. It just seems like a very practical is not the word, very functional relationship. And this time when we were going to make Double Fantasy, because we haven't been working together as artists for such a long time, so we were both very scared. And I thought we were going to start fighting like dog and a cat, you know, like really fight over remix or whatever. So I was depressed about it, and Joan felt that too, probably. And when we went to the studio, we found that we were somehow we were ticking and starting to work together in a very inspired way, and we couldn't believe it.
Does that show you that perhaps the dialogue idea was very successful, that it worked out your problems?
I think that made it easier for us, definitely. Yes. To ritualize it, you know. That's why I'm bringing back the ritual thing, but there are many nice rituals in this world, you know, and that has nothing to do with a social ritual so much, because a social ritual is sort of dead, you know. But many nice rituals that we can bring back. And one of them is to have a dialogue between men and women, I think.
Because if you don't open yourself up, you can't open the other person.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like going back into the studio for the first time in 5 or so years, or for you maybe longer?
Let's see. So both of us were very nervous. And then what happened? But at the same time, we were so excited with the songs, you know. We knew they were going to be good. And we had 22 songs, and it was very hard for us to choose for the first album, like that. And we decided that we should put songs like Losing You and Moving On in, though some people might think they're sort of negative. But, and we tried to make sure that the whole tone of the album would be on a positive side, because that's very important. But to throw that in was very important to show that people go through that too. It's like a catharsis, you know, that people go through that with us and see what happens. And then in the end, hard times are over for a while maybe, but you know, that sort of thing. And we wanted to show a real picture, not just sort of all pretty, you know.
But hard times are over. Mentioning that, an article in I believe it was the Herald Examiner in L.A. just question really what that song was. It a personal statement about your relationship? Was that hard times are over? Was it politics? Reagan is now...
Well, it covers everything. You see, I really don't think that, for instance, it's very important that for some women that we get equal rights and things like that. But I think we go beyond that, And for some people, it's a big threat that Reagan is going to be in, that sort of thing. But I think that we are people, first of all. And there are many things that we don't know about human beings, I don't know about it either. But there's an immense possibility. And I think our rights and our freedom and our power goes beyond those systems. And we shouldn't limit ourselves to that. So in a way, instead of fighting for that, we can trust in ourselves, center ourselves, and rely on our own power, which is immense. Each person is like a total universe, and we're very powerful people, So we should sort of realize that rather than to try to fight and get something outside of ourselves.
So universal harmony then starts on that very one-to-one relationship.
Oh yes, definitely.
Maybe you could explain, I know you've told this a million times, how the album, how the songs came about, your reaction when you first heard them on the line.
Oh, well, it was very strange. Just when we finished stringing the songs together for the album, and we were saying, it's over, we're finished, we strung it together, and then in the next room somebody was saying, quick, come over here because starting over is playing. So we just rushed to that room, and we heard it for the first time with that ding, 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 By the way, that's the ding, 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 that's sort of a bell for wishes, And if you make a wish, and you hear that ding, 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 and your wish will come true. So, it's that one. So, it sounded so good, so good, and we just felt like, oh, well, we did it then, we did it,
How about the first time you heard the songs from John? I understand you were taking separate space for a time or something. Could you tell me what your feelings were when you first heard his versions or his ideas for the songs, for his songs?
Oh, it wasn't really like that. I mean, he was in Bermuda relaxing with Sean, and I was here working, taking care of the business. And, I would have joined him if I liked that sort of thing, but not only that I was busy, but I don't really enjoy being in a warm place, I like New York. So anyway, and then we were having conversation on the phone every day. So he would call and say, how's this, Or he would say, are you tired? Do you mind if I just sing you one? And it was so funny because, we felt obligated, of course, to listen to each other's song. And when we have a song that we want to let the other person hear, we're just all dying like this. I'll be saying, would you mind, John? Are you tired? Not another one, that way. But I heard your song. Okay, well, come on, let's get on with it, And I would say, yes, I'm just on another phone, John, but, but this is a song. All right, I'm listening to his song. It was going like that. Because it's hard, it's hard to listen to somebody else's song. But in a way, because we both liked each other's songs in this album, particularly, that it worked out very well. And it was really truly a dialogue in that sense, that I would make one song and sing it to him over the phone, and then he reacts, to that in a way, and then he would write another song, and vice versa, he would write a song, and I'd say, oh, all right, that's how he feels, okay, how about this? It was really interesting.
In the times that you're so busy all the time, where do you find time to, number one, write your songs, and where do you do your writing? Just anywhere? Or
that's another thing. I have to somehow get organized and at least get a small tape recorder that I'm always carrying. But because I don't do that, I can't even remember to carry my watch, that's how it's the thing is, most of the songs, when I'm in a car or something, and I'll just say to the driver, quick, any paper, just give me any paper, and I'll just write it down, and, it's like that. So most of them just, scratches of, songs on, menu, behind the menu or anything, It gets like that.
When John first sang you, Starting Over, what was your gut reaction?
Oh, that was a beautiful experience. Wait a second. Starting Over, Woman, Watching the Wheels. Those three songs, especially Watching the Wheels, even now when I hear it, and this is after remixing and, doing all that stuff. Now, I heard them over 100 times, really. But it really makes me choke up. You know why? Because Watching the Wheels is a song that sums up what he was doing this past 5 years. And I went through, with him in a way. And it was very hard for him because people were very suspicious about it. Like, what are you doing now? Oh, I'm not doing anything. Well, when is your next album coming? That sort of thing. And even now when he declares that he's a house husband, I mean, there's an aspect of it that, when it was on a newscaster who's a guy was definitely very embarrassed, Oh, well, he's now a house husband, so he claims, that kind of thing. And his face was changing, And I think it's a very courageous thing to do. And a lot of people are saying, oh, I mean, this album is just full of love songs. What's that, But he knows all that aspect. It's very easy for him to do a macho song, Just another rocker, and say, whip a woman or kick them out of the room or whatever, and get drunk and with the boys, I mean, that image is so prevalent, in the rock world, and it's so easy to keep that up, But at the time that is the macho image, to come out and say, I'm a house husband and here I am with a son, and I still love my wife, which is, people get embarrassed, What is that, And I think that's a very courageous thing to do.
I agree. And Watching the Wheels is my favorite song.
It really makes me cry, that one, because I remember what he went through. And it was a very lonely trip for him. Still is a lonely trip for him. He's saying, where are the other house husbands? I want to talk to them. But it's difficult. It's just as difficult for men to be normal in this society as for women,
He openly credits you with saving his life.
It's how he wants to express, I suppose. But, you have to ask him that, I feel that before I got together with him, I was a macho woman, I was really sort of like, I was going my way, kind of. So if I was with somebody, I would not really face his problems. I was like, leave me alone about it, I have my own problems, And when I got together with John, because he's a strong guy, I had to face it, I had to face his problems too. And I realized that in this society, men do have their problems too. I mean, like he came from Liverpool, he was not in the right class, or, and auntie telling him that he has to be a veterinarian or something, that sort of thing, and they go through hell. So I realized that men do have problems as well. And that was a very good education for me.
Were there a lot of standoffs between you two in the early days, especially?
Oh, in the early days, we used to, everything was a reason for debate or discussion, Let's put it that way. And he comes from a very sort of, a kind of background that I didn't think that it existed anymore, very archaic sort of background. So in the morning, I would try to read the papers, and he would say, oh, not before I read it. And I'm thinking, what? A guy's supposed to read the papers first, what is this, And I came from a totally different background, so I was in New York, and I was very different. And I couldn't believe it. So we were always saying, well, let's discuss about this. This is really ridiculous. We have to discuss about this, that you have to read the papers. So then, I have to read the papers first, just remember that. And you say, well, all right, so let's get 2 papers. It's down to that, you see.
About your background, you had an aristocratic background, is that?
Sort of, yeah. Well, I mean, it was sort of upper class, in Japan. But that was pretty good too. In fact, when I think of it now, because now I know both sides. I mean, it's better to know both sides, because I went through situations where I was really penniless and I had to, sort of scrounge around and all that. That was interesting too. It was an interesting experience. So both ways it's interesting. But I had to really understand about women's problems in a sense. Well, in a sense, I bypassed that because of my background and because after that I was being an artist here and everything. And in a way I bypassed it until I met John and realized what women are going through. So it was a very good education in a way.
Like going to a school like Sarah Lawrence, being in that kind of environment, what influence was that on you?
That was like an extension of the school in Japan. There was sort of a similarity, and I mean, I went to a school in Japan with all girls in a way because there was a girls department and boys department, but they were in separate district and all that, so we were all separate. And Sarah Lawrence was like an extension of that in a way. And we were reading the same kind of books, and I mean, it was all right. But I never had to confront a situation where, women have to be working at home all the time, taking care of the babies and this and that, because my mother never took care of a baby. I mean, we all had a nanny or, governess or whatever. So, and I didn't really observe what is going on, And then when I think in the art world there was a certain problem that we were all facing, which was in New York especially, there was a homosexual mafia situation in the art world, and all women suffered from that, I'm sure, But still, when I went to England, and I mean, wives in the kitchen, that one. I mean, I'm here, sure, I mean, it's happening here too, But then I started to see it,
How do you think your relationship with John furthered your art? Or what did it do towards your artistic creativity?
The fact that I'm very interested now in pop media, and I think it's fantastic. In the old days, I was a sort of avant-garde snob or whatever you call it, And I thought, what are they doing? That sort of same beat all the time and everything about, pop songs. And I thought it was simplistic and all that. But now I see it like a haiku, haiku is 3-line poem. And it's very short. You have to say it in 3 minutes. And it's people's language, street language, and it's people's weapon. I mean, it's just beautiful. And so it's a challenging thing for me to do, and I'm enjoying it.
Do you consciously think about that in this album? Your music, obviously, is certainly more direct than in previous albums. Was that a conscious
Yes,
thing you were doing?
that's true. I was thinking it's great this way, And, of course, John is even more direct,
Mm-hmm.
I still use symbolism in a way, though I'm not really conscious of doing it. In a way, it comes out like that, so I'm doing that. But I think he's consciously trying to use very direct, simple words, I'm losing you. It's a fantastic song, but it's very sort of direct,
What was the musical influence? I'm just interested to know on I'm Your Angel. It reminds me of like Eddie Cantor in a way, because I like
Yes.
Eddie Cantor. I heard that 40s, 30s.
Oh, what happened was we went to dinner after he came back from Bermuda, and the first night, in fact, when he came back from Bermuda, I took him to a restaurant, and we had a nice dinner, and we felt so good because after sort of about a month of separation, or whatever, and just feeling a bit tipsy, a little wine and everything, and we're coming home. But we had to come home a bit early because of Sean, Oh, well, we should go home before 12, that sort of thing. And that sounded like Cinderella to me, And it was a beautiful night, sort of early summer. And the carriage was going in the Central Park. And, you hear all this sort of, the carriage sound and everything. And it almost made me feel like it was not this era, sort of, it could be any era kind of thing. So a very romantic feeling, and coming back, and the gate was still open in Dakota. We just strolled in, And I just went to the piano, and I just started writing the whole thing, Felt good, that's how it was.
You did it all at that one moment.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
It's a fabulous song.
And it's sort of like a tongue-in-cheek, you're my fairy, And Joe would say, oh, great, now I can come out of the closet.
For all these years.
Right.
What was his response to that song?
I think he liked it.
Something I'm interested in switching the responsibility within your relationship and marriage. What important new perspective do you think you've gained from that?
Well, that's another thing. You see, when we got together, and of course there was an element of being sort of like really crazy about each other or something. So that was all right. But, when his macho side was sort of coming out, here and there, and I was like, what is this, And on top of it, the world was against me. So, the whole world is behind this macho guy, What's this, I was really getting sort of upset about it. So by the time it was 1973, was it? I just felt like saying to John, well, look, why don't you just go to L.A. and have fun, leave me alone, And I just wanted to think straight, because I couldn't think straight anymore, or all that going on, And then when we came back together again, I think that he really tried hard in a way to make it work. And all the things that he did since then, I just can't help, I started to have a renewed, or whatever you call it, just a great respect for him. I thought, well, I didn't know that this guy can do this, I knew that he could do other things. He's talented, and all that. But this I didn't believe that he could do, One is to just leave the whole business to me. Just give me carte blanche. I think you need a lot of courage to do that, Like saying, here's a blank check, you want to take care of it, And in fact, he gave me it was symbolic, but gesture. But he gave me a blank check, just signed it, and I had it framed, Great, And also, he felt that he should take care of Sean. But that was not for me in a way. I think he wanted that experience. And I think that a lot of guys really want to secretively, there's some guys who want to stay at home. That suits their temperament or whatever. Or they want to cook, but they're sort of shy about it. There are a lot of guys like that, And I think he enjoyed cooking. I think basically he likes to stay at home. And he doesn't like to do business, Now, I never did business either, but I prefer doing business to staying at home, let's put it that way, or taking care of a child. I just can't do it, manage it. So it's just an individual difference. But it worked out very well, because then by that time the world made it so difficult for me that the only area that I can channel my energies into was this family business. So I thought, all right, let's do that.
Do you think the world still has that? You said the world was, I guess, against you in a relationship with John. In some ways, it's controlling him, whatever press was saying. Do you still feel that way in a certain way?
About the fact that
Do people feel that way, or in general?
No, I mean, I think both of us in our own way and together really stood against it in a way, you know. We said, okay, well, try to destroy us. We couldn't be just destroyed that way, you know. And we managed it, we feel. So, basically, I mean, we care about the world, but if they try to control us, you know, we couldn't care less, you know.
Well,
No, thank you.
Maybe it's this relationship that you've gone through, at least over the last 5 years. Is that a role model in some way, do you think, for some people that may have felt that way for a long time? Maybe there are a lot of men in America that really would want to do that, kind of switch the role, and then maybe now it's okay and they have...
You see, now again, we're forced into being in a pioneer position, which we don't want to necessarily take. I mean, you know, it's hard for us to be doing something when nobody else is doing it, you know. And I'm sure there are a lot of people already starting to exchange roles and things like that. But still, it's not really to the point that people would accept this kind of situation, you know, especially when it happens to us for some reason. So I feel Joan's loneliness in a way, you know. There's that. But I don't feel that we're a role model, because I think each person has his or her own karma, and their needs are different in each person. And when we were separated and Joan was doing his thing in L.A. and I was doing my thing here and all that, we weren't saying, well, look, you know, do like what we're doing. And when we didn't have a child, we weren't saying, well, look, you know, you shouldn't have a child. I mean, it's the same thing now. For us, this is what happened, you know. I'm not even saying this is what is the best for us. I don't know what is best or what it should be, but this is what happened, and we did our best, and we're just surviving, that's all.
Is it possible not to be a role model, though, when you have 100 years ago, John and Yoko were doing what they're doing, very few people would know about it because we had no media. Now it's everyone, you know, Harry and John Smith living in Brooklyn do something, and nobody really can know about it when John and Yoko do it. Television, press, radio.
Well, let's say that this is one way of doing things, you know.
I'm sorry I'm late. I was expecting to buzz me and she kept saying one more.
I know how it is. Yes, we're on, dear.
What do I do?
Well, I
doing
think...
one and then the other? Or
No, because they were just waiting,
I'm
you know.
sorry, I was just
So,
up there and she'd say, well,
You had a great time.
I just put my jacket on to leave. And she said, can I have one with the jacket? Okay, I'll put the one with the
Oh,
jacket.
one with the jacket, yes, okay.
Oh, Dolly. Hi, hello.
Hi. You have to have this on.
What? What is it? Oh, it's a microphone. Okay, let me get relaxed.
Just like this, you know.
I'll be too hot like that. I like the TV, right?
Well, I was just sort of
Rabbiting.
rabbiting on, right?
Hello, testing. Let me...
I'm Dave.
Hello, Dave.
John, pleasure.
Yeah, I'm sure I've heard your voice. Which one is the talker, you? You're both the talker? Yeah. How are you? You're not John Paul, George Ringo and Bert, are you? Not that Bert. It's the only Bert I know. Oh, I know the other Bert. Good night, Bert. Ernie.
Right.
Okay, Bert.
I two boys, and they
Ginger.
hurt learning me to death.
Yeah, I bet. Well, look, I'm been a lot of Sesame Street, me and Sean, so I know all the characters, you know.
It
What
comes
was that
on
ripping?
twice a day in L.A. It comes on at 9 in the morning.
Yeah.
And then at 5 in the afternoon, they do a repeat of the same.
Oh, well, we get it on Channel G at 7 till 8, from 9 till 10 on PBS, and then evening sometime or other. Is that mine? That was the noise. I was looking for it all over the place. Okay.
Here we are.
Yeah. Whenever you're ready. Whatever. Sorry to interrupt.
So I'd like to ask one
You weren't interrupting, yes?
a question to both of you. What is a typical day? I think the listeners would like to hear this one. What is a typical day in the life of you?
Why don't you explain it?
Well,
Your side of it.
yeah, there's a sort of basic day. They vary slightly. If we're making records and that's different, but when we're not doing records and being up late. I get up about 6, go to the kitchen, get a cup of coffee, cough a little, have a cigarette. Papers arrive at 7. Sean gets up 7:20, 25. I oversee his breakfast, don't cook it anymore, got fed up with that one, but I make sure I know what he's eating. Yoko, if she's not really, really busy, sometimes I wake up and she's already down here in this office, but if it's not that kind of pressure going on, she might pass through the kitchen on the way to the office, whereas I'll make her a cup of espresso to get her down in the elevator good. And then I'll hang around there until about 9. Sean sort of had his breakfast, and him and his nanny Helen are deciding what to do for the day, and I'll make sure he watches PBS and not the cartoons with the commercials. I don't mind cartoons, but I won't let him watch the commercials. So make sure if he's going to watch something that morning, it's going to be Sesame Street. Then Sean and the nanny will go off somewhere and do something. And I'll go back to my room. It's the bedroom, but I do everything there. I mean, I have instruments and, records and whatever I do, I always do. I used to say, if you can't do it in bed, you can't do it anywhere. I'm a bit like Hugh Hefner, it's all like the bed controls the whole thing. Then if I'll buzz down and see what Yoko's doing downstairs, because we have the intercom running between upstairs and downstairs. If the day's not too hectic, we can meet for lunch and go out to lunch. If not, if I haven't got anything outside of the house to do, I will go back in at 12 to see that Sean gets a good lunch and be with him while he eats, even if I don't eat. And then it just goes on like that, and she's still in the office, and then after lunch, he usually goes and does something else with the nanny, that presuming they've come in for lunch. Generally they do. And then I will have that from maybe 1 till 5. I'll take for myself to do whatever I want to do, stay in, go out, read, write, whatever. 5:30, I start looking around to see if Sean's got back again. If he's back from wherever he's gone, or it's getting time for dinner. 6, we eat dinner. Usually Yoko's still down in the office, so then we have dinner. 7 o'clock, bath. This is Sean, my life revolves around Sean. 7 o'clock, bath. Daddy goes in to watch Walter Cronkite. 7:30, there's usually some kids stuff on, right? I let him watch commercial TV if I'm there, because when the commercials come off, I just flick my little switch which goes onto radio. So I don't mind if he watches them without hearing them, it's different. 7:30 till 8, he watches something. I take him to his bedroom, kiss him goodnight. The nanny probably reads him a story, whatever they get up to in there, and he's in bed by 8. Then I'll give a buzz downstairs, say, what the hell are you doing down there? You still down there? If I'm lucky, she'll come up and maybe we can do something. But she's a workaholic, so she's liable to go on until... she'll sometimes come back up at 10 o'clock at night and take 2 hours sort of rest, and then start work again at 12 midnight, because she's always calling the West Coast or England or Tokyo or some godforsaken place that is on the different time zone from it. And that's a regular day.
How do you feel the two of you and Sean, have grown from your extreme close relationship?
Well, I don't know whether it's because he was born on the same day as me, which that in itself was quite strange. He was born on October the 9th, which I was, so we're almost like twins. The funny thing, if he doesn't see me a few days, or if I'm really, really busy, and I just sort of get a glimpse of him, or if I'm feeling depressed, without him even seeing me, he sort of picks up on it, and he starts getting that way. So it's like I can no longer afford to have artistic depressions, which usually produced a miserable song, but it was something I could use, So if I start going really deep, sort of wallowing in a depression, I kind of enjoy it or whatever one does with them, the best you can, he'll start coming down with stuff, so I'm sort of obligated to keep up. But sometimes I can't, because something will make me depressed and there's no way I can deal with it. And then he's sure as hell he'll get a cold or trap his finger in the door, or something will happen, and so now I have a sort of more reason to stay healthy and bright. I cannot no longer wallow in it and say, well, this is how artists are supposed to be, I suppose, write the blues, So that's it, pretty regularly like that. And like this weekend was a big deal because he went off with his nanny to Pennsylvania, so I could slob around and I didn't have to, you know.
Silence, quiet.
I could eat when I wanted to
Right.
eat because I never really want to eat at the same time and never hungry at the same time. So it was very quiet in the apartment, and we just
get
sort
up
of...
early on Saturday.
Well, I tend to get up early anyway. I got up at 6 this morning anyway because I'm just tuned to that now.
I'm interested in why you don't want to watch commercials. What is it?
Because they hypnotize you. I don't want him asking for junk food every 10 minutes because his basic diet is pretty health food oriented, although I don't make him suffer, you know, and he can get his ice cream, preferably Haagen-Dazs, maybe once a week. I try and discourage it in the winter because it's, you know, winter. And his nanny is not a health food girl, and I call her the dairy queen. You know, I try and limit the amount of dairy he takes because it creates mucus. But if he goes to friends' houses, he eats what they eat and things like that. But with the commercials, I love commercials as an art form. I really do. The way they're made as films, and I really admire them. I think the best directors are in there, not making movies, they're making commercials. But that constant repetition, I've tried letting it go for a bit, and he can't help it, even though we discuss it. He can't help wanting things he doesn't really want. And it's hard enough bringing up a kid without dealing with this request for garbage all the time. You know? He can go to McDonald's occasionally. I don't want him going there every day and living on junk food.
Yes.
So that's basically it. And they're selling the sugar. We don't eat sugar mainly, although I'm guilty of it when I make records because it gives me energy. But since I met Yoko in 1966, I have not taken sugar as part of my diet. And the damn commercial, the programs are great for kids. And I'm no even qualms about violent cartoons because he understands cartoons as opposed to film. It's that constant sugar, 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 and the only break is hamburger, cheeseburger, sugar, 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 sugar. And I think it destroys the child's physical health and therefore affects his mental health.
You consider yourself fortunate to be able to spend the amount of time, both that way.
I do consider myself fortunate, but I took the time. Any famous star or whatever it is where you come under, and I'm not going to name any names, but many of them that have problems with their kids, either killing themselves or in various ways. I don't buy that bit about quality over quantity. You know, like an hour a week of intense rolling in the hay together is better than 20 minutes every day of you being bitchy and just being yourself around him. So I don't try and be the God Almighty kind of figure that never is always smiling and such this wonderful father. I'm not putting out an image of this person who knows all about... Nobody knows about children. That's the thing. You look in the books, there's no real experts. Everybody's got a different opinion. You learn by default in a way. And I made a lot of mistakes already, but what can you do? But I think it's better for him to see me as I am. If I'm grumpy, I'm grumpy. If I'm not, I'm not. If I want to play, I'll play. If I don't, I don't. I don't kowtow to him. I'm straight with him as I can be. And yes, I can afford to take the time, but anybody with a working wife might be able to afford to take the time if they're not really got a working wife because they're poor and they both have to work because of the cost of living.
That's what I was because now we have so many...
But I know lots of dads who aren't working that hard, who are just sitting in an office all day anyway to avoid life, I mean, they're sitting behind desks and they're doing nothing, just shuffling paper, right, waiting for lunchtime to get a cocktail. But I don't buy that, my career is so important that I'll deal with the kids later, which I already did with my first marriage, my first child, and I kind of regret it. My other son by my first marriage is 17. I don't remember seeing him as a child. It didn't even enter, like most guys is 24, 25. They're too intent on their career, really. I won't, or we won't later on, or maybe we will, I don't know. I'm just hoping that whatever I give now, which is time, I won't have to pay, because I think you can't cheat kids. If you cheat them when they're children, they'll make you pay when they're 16 or 17 by revolt against you or hating you or all those so-called teenage problems. I don't really think that's an inborn nature thing. I think that's finally when they get old enough to stand up to you and say what a hypocrite you've been all this time. You never give me what I really wanted, which was you. So I'm hoping that, I'm really looking at it in a calculating way, really. Give him now, maybe he won't be so frantic when he's 16 or 17.
Do you think that's happening in the society right now?
I think that's what happened to all of us, you know. I think that idea of, you know, no breastfeeding, don't touch them, you'll spoil them. I think that's all lunacy from some lunatic. You see, I know it's almost the same in America. Male children in England were brought up to defend the country. I mean, that was about it, you know. You had to have discipline and not touch the kid. He had to be a hard nut. A boy was really programmed to go in the army. That was about it, you know. And you had to be tough, and you're not supposed to cry, and you're not supposed to show emotion. And I know Americans show more emotion, are more open than English people, but it's pretty similar over here. There's that Calvinist, Protestant, Anglo-Saxon ethic, which is don't touch, don't react, don't feel. And I think that's what screwed us all up. And I think it's time for a change.
It's interesting you made that comment about, you know, it's not an excuse that you're not a pop star, because I'm sure there are people that will listen to this interview when they hear you say that. It's, oh, sure, John and Yoko, they can send back and say, sure, we can spend time. We have to do all these things.
Well, well, Yoko was a poor artist when I met her, okay? And living in not the best conditions. And she had a child, and the child went wherever she went. You see, she didn't treat her first child like I treated
Even
mine.
on stage, you know.
She took her on stage, you know, I mean, little squirking thing on the, and she would take her when they were making movies, because I saw before we got together. I've seen her work and the way she worked, and Kyoko was running around all over the place. And there are many artistically inclined people that have worked like that in the past, not since the 60s, but in the 30s and any other time. So even if I was poor, it's the state of mind I'm in. I would work out some way for him to be around us somehow, okay? I would have chosen my career to suit that. And it's not, you don't have to be rich to love your kids.
So you made this conscious decision to give yourself to your son and to the relationship.
And to learn from him too. You know, I learned a lot from the child, because they're not hypocrites and they're not phony, and they know when you're I mean, he knows already, you know. I mean, already he makes me feel. You know, anybody with a child that spent any moment with them, you know, and it's good for you, I think, because one does tend to fool oneself, and the kids don't buy it.
Well, they know when you're nuts.
Oh.
You hit the nail on the head when you said you got to be straight with them.
Yeah.
They know when you're not straight with
They
them.
do.
And they'll call you. I mean, I called Jack. I was in San Francisco and Birds in L.A. now, and I called Jack to remember his fourth birthday. They called to wish him happy birthday. Well, I was a day late. It's Monday night. I called him, Jack, happy birthday. It's not my birthday. Yesterday.
Oh, sorry.
Terrible.
Yeah, right.
He was saying, remember, that he wants to be a daddy when he's older.
Oh, yeah, this is because I hadn't been in the studio for 5 years or whatever, so he's used to me being around all the time. Because it's a pleasure for me to hang around the house. I was always a homebody. I think a lot of musicians are, you know, you write and you play in the house anyway. Or when I was wanting to be a painter when I was younger, it was all in the house, or write poetry, it was always in the house. But I started the work, you know, and he started seeing a bit less of me. I'd let him come to the studio, but it was a bit boring. He was excited, but long story short, at the end of the session, and it was going on, I got back on a night schedule where I'd be coming in when he'd be getting up. So he'd see me at breakfast, but I was a sort of shredded, okay, what, like that. Then one day we were sort of lying down on the bed together, so I'm maybe watching some cartoon or whatever. And he just sat up and said, you know what I want to be when I grow up? I said, no, what's that? He looked me right in the eye and said, just a daddy. And I thought, I said, you mean you don't like it? That I'm working now, right? And going out a lot. He says, right. I said, well, I'll tell you something, Sean. It makes me happy to do the music. And I might have more fun with you if I'm happier, right? He said, That was the end of that. I mean, I think I was BSing him, you know, but he caught me off guard there, because I'm just a daddy.
It's his way of expressing.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty straight, wasn't it? Right.
When you leave your kids, you feel sometimes like you're robbing them of something. When I left yesterday. I'll be home tonight.
Yeah.
When I left, like Joe's home too, I said goodbye to Jack and he got pissed.
I know, he
walked
doesn't.
into his room, and But then I called when I got here to New York. Hi, and it was different.
I was guilty all through mostly of making double fantasy, I must say. We had his picture pin in the studio because I didn't want to lose contact with what I'd got. I was scared myself that moving back into the business and one tends to hone in on yourself and the record and how you're doing it. We had his picture up there all the time, in between the speakers, so whenever you're checking the stereo, he was looking at me all the time. I went through some terrible guilt, absolutely. But I didn't want to put it on one side, because I knew part of it was, I needn't feel guilty, I'm entitled, and I have to have my own space too, but still, God, it racks you.
But at the same time, maybe we were giving him a space too.
Oh yeah, he needs the space too, because I'm obviously, when I'm not around, he relaxes more with Helen about how he eats and the knife and fork business, and I do tend to sort of want him to be a little gentleman, or maybe it's not that necessary, and part of that English upbringing comes out, and I'm saying, well, that's American style of eating, that's fine, you use the fork. Now, if you're going to use the knife, and Japanese, well, you use the chopstick properly, don't pick around and shove it around, So he does need a break from me, too.
Mm. And also, you see, as you said, a happy father is better than a grumpy father.
Yeah, but I heard those women who were saying, I'm going to fulfill myself by having a job, so you just... I wish there was a system where they had, community daycare and places where they would be happy to be, not that you foist them off like kindergarten. I sent him to kindergarten for a bit, but he was miserable and bored. And I realized I really, really sent him because I thought I'd get more space to myself. And he was not happy. I wasn't happy either because I wasn't using the space. I was thinking, what's going on? And am I doing this for the right reasons? Why am I...
There are some different kinds of schools that you can send your kids to that they won't be miserable and bored. Like Jack goes to a school for just 4 hours, 3 times a week. They learn different things, but mostly to play with kids his own age.
Well, he sees them. He knows what time they come off school. He's on that phone. Maxie comes back at 3:30. He dials next door. He knows they're coming home. So he knows there's only a few hours when they're all at school anyway. And his vocabulary is fantastic because he's been with children grown-ups more than children. And actually, they don't need that companionship till about 6 and 7. They can really relate to other kids. An hour together with other kids, always tension or, who wants to be center of attention. After an hour's play together, you usually have to split them up for a bit because they're not really ready to allow each other space and have real friendships, although he has a real friendship with about 3 kids. But still, 6 or 7 is more important, I think, for that community thing. And I tell him, if he says, if he gets that bored feeling, I say, well, you know where your friends are? They're 2 blocks down the street here, they're at school. He said, I'll wait till 4. Because he knows all they learn is to sit still.
Would you consider yourself a strict mother and father? At least his moral code and what is right and wrong and what you're...
Well, you see, if I knew the secrets of what is right and wrong, well, I wish we all knew the secrets. Nobody really knows, that's the point. Nobody really knows what's best for children, whatever. They're like guinea pigs that each generation experiments on. I know if you go too far to the liberal side, they'll probably grow up being disciplinarians. If you give them too much discipline, they'll end up the opposite. I'm trying to just have no real heavy discipline about behavior, only don't be impolite, don't hurt other people, and yes, you do have to clean your teeth after you've eaten. When you eat, you eat. And then you play after, not both at the same time, and regular bedtime. I think regularity is good for them. We did try the thing of let him sleep when he wants to sleep, but it didn't work. He enjoyed the freedom, and in that way he relaxed. But on the other hand, he started getting tired, and whining. So I thought, no, this doesn't work.
But he has to be disciplined in a way, because...
oh, well, I do discipline him.
And you do.
I never would hit him.
So I always cooperate, don't I? I always say, Daddy knows
You're one of the best fathers he's ever had.
Well, you better ask your daddy, because he knows.
She's still a real mother, because when it comes to the bit about who's tired and irritable, she can deal with him when she's tired and irritable, and I still find it hard then to give and have him crawling over me when I'm tired and irritable. I need that rest to deal with him.
The other thing that's very strange is probably...
Are we talking about child reading or records here? What is it?
Well, The funny thing is that there must be some sort of physical connection, and that's why, you know, I can relax about it. I don't feel that even when he's far away, I mean, it's upstairs, but I'm here working, that we're sort of connected and we know what we're doing. Because
he buzzes down to the office all the time.
And he gets hurt or something. And the other day, I just suddenly woke up very early in the morning, and I heard him cry. But, I mean, it was just an instant after I woke up that he started crying.
Mm-hmm.
And I just rushed over. And there was that sort of feeling like I already knew what was going to happen, you know.
Also, she never is, however busy she is, she'll never stop him coming in. Even if she's in a really important business meeting. Even if he comes in, then she says, well, he sees that, you know, this would be boring if he walked in now. He'd like to check it out and maybe interrupt a little, but it would be boring for him. So he'd go away. But so he knows there's access there. So in that way, we're lucky that our work space is within the building. But that goes for any artist, rich or poor. But they do tend to work in their own homes or lofts or apartments. So in that respect, I think a lot of people do what we do anyway. Because if you work in the apartment, you live in it, it's all the same place. It's not a place where daddy or mummy has to go across town or get a commute every day. So in that way, musicians and artists have a benefit that maybe ordinary people couldn't get.
I want to ask you about getting the urge to make music again now.
So it came over me all of a sudden, love. I didn't know what came over me.
I know, like you were possessed.
Yes, I was possessed by this rock and roll devil, you know.
It's like you having dinner that night and you just flew right to the piano.
Yes, it's like that.
Yeah, well, is that the question? Did I interrupt you?
You got it.
Why suddenly and all that?
Yeah.
Well, partly because suddenly I got the songs, you know.
You never know, you know. Those things just come to you.
Just suddenly, like, had, if you pardon the expression, diarrhea of creativity. And, in fact, we went in the studio and cut about 22 tracks and cut it down to 14 to make the dialogue. They were all dialogue songs, meaning that we were writing as if it was a play and we were the two characters in it. But it's real life, but not real as well, because on a song or a record it can't be real. I mean, we could have taken it a step further and made this record so maybe she would be called Ziggy Stardust and I would be called Tommy. And then you would call it a rock opera, you see? But we always worked from our own selves as near as we could. So the album, the work we did on this thing is really a play, but we're using ourselves as the characters. And what we sing about in the record and the songs are real diaries of how we feel. But also it's always not really, really real because it's a song and it's on a record and you project it in a different way. But we started this thing and I started getting these songs. I called her, I said, we had discussed going back in the studio, but I didn't have the material, but I wasn't worried about it because I thought, well, I haven't done it for a long time. Maybe if I switch into that, there'll be something there. But it just sort of came. And I called her because I was in Bermuda with Sean and she was here in New York. I called her and I said, well, look, we were talking about recording. It must have triggered something off here because I'm getting all this stuff. And I started singing it to her down the phone or playing a cassette. And she would call back 2 hours later and say, well, when you sang that, Losing You, or she'd come back with Moving On or something. And then I'd say, oh, Moving On, okay. And then I'd be swimming or doing anything. Suddenly something else would come, like starting over. I'd say, hey, well, look, this is what happened. And it started working like, coming out like that. So then I couldn't wait to get back and start then. I suddenly had all this material. After not really trying, but not trying either for 5 years. I'd been so locked in the home environment and completely switched my way of thinking that I didn't really think about music at all. My guitar was sort of hung up behind the bed, literally. And I don't think I took it down in 5 years.
Yoko was telling us about the emotional impact of hearing your songs to her for the first time. How did you feel hearing her material?
It inspired me completely. As soon as she would sing something to me or play the cassette down the phone, I would, within 10 or 15 minutes, whether I wanted to work or not, if you call it work, I would suddenly get this song coming to me. And I always felt that the best songs were ones that came to you rather than... I do have the ability to, you know, if you ask me to write a song for a movie or something, and they say it's about this, I can sit down and sort of make a song. I wouldn't be thrilled with it, but I can make a song like that. But I find it difficult to do that, but I can do it. You know, I call it craftsmanship, you know. I've had enough years at it to sort of put something together, but I never enjoyed that. I like it to be inspirational from the spirit. And being with Sean and switching off from the business sort of allowed that channel to be free for a bit. You know, it wasn't always on. It was switched off, and when I sort of switched it on again, zap, all this stuff came through. So now we're already, well, we did enough material for the next album, almost half as much, and we're already talking about the third album, so we're full of vim and vigor.
Did you know, after you heard the album, when it was completed, after the first time you heard it, did you know that it was going to be accepted like that?
No, we didn't know anything, did we? Really?
You know, you go through two ways. Sometimes you think, wow, yeah, great, this is great, we've done it. And then the next time you hear it, well, she's not quite the same as I'll think, no, this is not right, it's not right. So I would go yay and nay on it all the time. But I think, basically, we thought, if people will listen to it for what it is and not listen to it with preconceived ideas of how it ought to be or as compared to something else, then if people could listen to it just as if it wasn't even John and Yoko, just that it came over the radio and you accept it or not accept it as you hear it, not as you expect to hear John Lennon or expect to hear Yoko Ono or expect to hear an ex-Beatle or expect to hear whatever, or having read a good review or a bad review. Forget about that. Just get it on the radio, I thought, and it'll be all right.
The way I looked at it was probably it's an album that's not going to do too well, but in the end, you know, maybe like 2 years later or something, people say, that was good. Because I knew that the theme was good, I knew the dialogue was important, etc. And each song was all right, you know. So I had a feeling that even if it takes a long time, people would know about it, you know. But I didn't know it was going to be that instant, you know.
You went out on a limb with this, though. You took a lot of very personal love songs and laid them out for everybody. How does that feel to you? How do you feel about, after 5 years of silence, baring yourselves to people in interviews and music?
Because, you know, even as I put it in my last incarnation, everybody's got something to hide except for me and my monkey. It means really that, you know, one cannot be absolutely oneself in public, because the fact that you're in public makes you have to have some kind of defense or whatever it is. But we always tried, from whether it's from Two Virgins through Imagine, through anything we've done together, the films we made together, always tried to get as near to the uncensored, as it were, for what we are, not to project an image of something that we're not. Because having been in that sort of pop business so long, and tried to retain myself throughout it, but obviously not always being successful at that, it was most uncomfortable when I didn't feel I was being myself. You know, when I would have to smile when I didn't want to smile. And it became like all that, like being a politician, you know. And what I really got through this 5 years was, I'm not running for office. I like to be liked. I don't like to offend people. I would like to be a happy, contented person. I don't want to have to sell my soul again, as it were, to have a hit record. I've discovered that I can live without it, and it makes it happier for me. But I'm not going to come back in and try and create a persona who would not be myself. Does that explain it?
Do you think that the combination of removing yourself from the music scene and then also the artists that have to deliver an album every 6 months? Okay, it's time.
Yeah, well, I went...
We want an album. And you've got to sit down and crank it out. Would that spawn the creativity that you were talking about, just letting it...
Yes, yeah, it was to give... It's like the channels on the radio were jammed, you know. I was not getting clear signals. And after 10 or 15, almost 20 years of being under contract and having to produce two albums a year in the early days and a single every 3 months, regardless of what the hell else you were doing, or what your family life was like, what your personal life was like, nothing counted. You just had to get those songs out. Paul and I turned out a lot of songs those days, and it was easier because it was the beginning of our, relationship and career. Paul and I developed in public, as it were. We had a little rehearsal in private, but mainly we developed our abilities in public. But then it got to be format, and sort of not the pleasure that it was, and that's when I felt that I'd lost myself. Not that I was on purposely being a hypocrite or a phony, but it took something away from what I set out to do. I started out to do rock and roll because I absolutely liked doing it. So that's why I ended up doing a track like Starting Over. It's kind of tongue-in-cheek. You know, it's that, it's sort of a la Elvis and that, and I hope people accept it like that. I think it's a serious piece of work, but it's also tongue-in-cheek, I mean, I went right back to my roots. All the time we were doing it, I was calling it Elvis Orbison, and it's not going back to being Beatle John in the 60s, it's being John Lennon, whose life was changed completely by hearing American rock and roll on the radio as a child, and that's the part of me that's coming out again. That's why I'm enjoying it this time. I'm not trying to compete with my old self or compete with the young new wave kids or anything like that are coming on. I'm not competing with anything. I'm trying to go back and enjoy it as I enjoyed it originally. And it's working.
Oh, that's another thing. Yes, we both enjoyed it so much. And that's, really good, isn't it?
Yeah, to have I was saying to somebody the other day, there's only two artists I've ever worked with for more than one night stand, as it were. That's Paul McCartney and Yoko Ono. I think that's a pretty damn good choice. Because in the history of the Beatles, Paul met me the first day I did Bebopaloola live on stage. Okay? And a mutual friend brought him to see my group called the Quarrymen. And we met and we talked after the show. And I saw he had talent, and he was playing guitar backstage and doing 20 Flight Rock by Eddie Cochran. And I turned around to him right then on first meeting and said, "Do you want to join the group?" And he said, And I think he said yes the next day, as I recall it. Now, George came through Paul, and Ringo came through George, although, of course, I had a say in where they came from, but the person I actually picked as my partner, who I recognized had talent, and I could get on with, was Paul. Now, however many years later, I met Yoko. I had the same feeling. It was a different field, but I had the same feeling. So I think as a talent scout, I've done pretty damn well.
Can you tell us about that meeting?
With Yoko? Well, it was sort of 1966, and I got a call from a guy called John Dunbar, who used to be married to Marion Faithfull. Everybody's connected. And he had a gallery in London called Indica Gallery, an art gallery. And I used to go there occasionally to see whatever art show was on, you see. And he said, "Oh, I've got this, there's this fantastic Japanese girl coming from New York, and she's going to do this other thing, but she's also going to put on an exhibition at my gallery. And it's going to be this big event, and something about black bags." And I thought, oh, geez, these artists, they're all ravers. It was in the days of happenings and paint and all that stuff, right? So, I go right down there, for the opening, goody, goes down, see what's happening. I get down there, and it's the night before the opening. I thought there was going to be a big party and an opening and the whole bit, I didn't want to get involved. I wanted to watch, I get there, it's all white and quiet, and there's just these strange things all on display, like an apple on a stand for £200, when the pound was worth $8 or something, or whatever. And there's hammers with saying hammer in it, all this very peculiar stuff, and a ladder with a painting on the sky. Or it looked like a blank canvas on the ceiling with a spyglass hanging from it. So I'm looking round, and there doesn't seem to be many people. There's a couple of people downstairs, and I didn't know who was who. So I get up the ladder, and I look through this spyglass, and it said yes. And I took that as a personal positive message, because most of the avant-garde artists of that period were all negative, like break a piano with an axe. It was mainly male. I'm looking at the female here. It was mainly male art, and it was all destructive and But here was this little crazy message on the ceiling. And then the guy introduced me to her, and she didn't know who the hell I was. She had no idea. She was living in a different environment altogether. And I was saying, well, I thought, this is a good con, isn't it? Apples for £200 and hammer and nail. Who's going to buy this? You know? I didn't know what concept art was, which in a nutshell is the idea is more important than the object. So that's why you won't see many rich concept artists around, because you can't really, you know, like the guy that wraps up what's the guy that wraps up the... Christo wraps up things. Well, he doesn't expect you to buy the canvas. What he's doing is selling you this idea, whatever it is he's projecting. But it's the same kind of thing, but I hadn't come across it before. You know, you sell a nail and a hammer, you know. So anyway, I said, the gallery owner was all fussing around. He was thinking, is he going to buy something? And she's ignoring me, you know. So he introduced us, and I said, well, where's the event? You know, where's the happening? Because I'd seen the bag. So she just takes the card out and gives it to me and just says, breathe. So I said, you mean that? She said, you got it. I said, all right, I'm beginning to catch on here. You know? So, and then I see this hammer, this thing hanging.
I just remember his nose. He did it exactly like that.
Well, you know, what else are you going to do? That was the big event, you know, I mean, all the way from New York for that. So I see the hammer hanging on the thing with a few nails underneath. I said, well, can I at least hammer a nail in? You know, I've come all the way from the suburbs for this. And she says, no.
This is before the opening.
Well, it was before the opening. She didn't want the thing messed up, you know. So anyway, the gallery owner has a little word with her, and she comes over to me and she says, all right, no smiling or anything, because you know how she is. She's not running for office. She never was. So she looks at me and she says, you give me 5 shillings. Well, that's about $10, maybe 20 those days.
Are you kidding? 5 shillings, about 50 cents or something, or $1.
No, those days are shillings. Anyway, whatever.
All right,
She said, give me 5 shillings and you can hammer a nail in. So I looked at her and said, I'll give you an imaginary 5 shillings and hammer an imaginary nail in, okay? And that's when we connected really, and we looked at each other like, you know, that sort of, something went on. Well, I didn't see her again for a few weeks. We went to a Klaus Oldenburg opening, and we were all... I went with Paul, and I don't know who she was with, but I got separated from Paul, and I felt this sort of vibe behind me, and I looked round, and there she was, you know. And we were both very shy, believe it or not, and I don't know what I said. We said something. We didn't really get together till 18 months later. We didn't make love till 2 years. You think we're rock and rollers, you know, all the life that people lead. And it's all right sort of coming on with somebody you know that's not going to go anywhere. You know, it's easy to sort of one night stand and groupies and that, but with a real relationship, I was so paranoid, and it was 18 months or a year before we even got near to each other physically, as it were. Because I didn't know how to treat somebody, a real woman. I only knew how to treat groupies, really. That's not to say anything against my first wife, but that was when we were kids, and the relationship started when we were both kids, so it was a different thing altogether. But this was quite a shock for me, and somebody who demanded equal rights right from the word go, you know. It was quite a long trip. But we've been together now longer than the Beatles, right. You know that?
That's interesting, isn't it?
People always think in terms of John and Yoko just got together and the Beatles split, and we've been together longer than the Beatles.
How did your music start reflecting your meeting and your spiritual bond with you? Was it immediate?
It was immediate.
Immediate.
I used to have a place where I worked in the house again, upstairs, in my first incarnation with another wife and kids. And I used to make kind of freaky music at home. And you would hear it coming through on things like Tomorrow Never Knows on Revolver, or Rain, and some little backwards things. But I never made that the whole track.
But you had sort of freaky stuff,
but at home I would make far freakier stuff, you know, which I would take the sort of most usable and add it to the Beatles, or to my tracks of the Beatles, whether it was Walrus or Strawberries or whatever, fiddle around a bit, or put loops, or, you know, something fun. But at home I was really far out, and I had a kind of little studio, which was really just a lot of tape recorders, and we made 2 versions that way. She came over for a date, as it were, and I didn't know what to do, and she didn't know what to do. I said, you know, I didn't know what to do with her, so I said, you want to go upstairs and play with the tapes? You know? So, because we didn't know what to do, we did play with the tapes all night. And we made two virgins, and I was showing her all my different tape recordings and how I made the funny sound.
You were running around.
I was running around pushing buttons and playing the mellotron, and she started into her Yoko Ono stuff, which is now stuff you hear on B-52, the Lenny Lovitch and all that stuff. She started doing this, ow, and all that, and I thought, this is great, and I was going on the tapes, and she was going, ow. And we made a tape all night, and in the morning we made love as the sun came up. But we'd made this album's worth of sound together without consciously setting out to make something. And that was the first togetherness. And we shot the cover ourselves privately. And it wasn't, we just got somebody to set the camera up, took the shot, and put out Two Virgins. That was the start of the whole shebang.
And the reaction was,
what are they doing? This Japanese witch has made him crazy and he's gone bananas. But all she did was take the bananas part of me out of the closet more, that had been inhibited by the other part.
And did that help you?
Oh, it was
a relief, right?
A complete relief to meet somebody else who was as far out as I was, that was the real thing.
The music you make together is a pleasure for you to make. At the same time that it is a pleasure for you, and you enjoy, obviously, you enjoyed making this album. Was that it, or was there also, we wanted to be a commercial success, along with the fact that, yes, we also enjoyed and were having a good time?
Oh, now we'd like to have a commercial success,
yes,
because
definitely.
also, if I'm taking too much of the time, please direct the question to you.
No, go
From all
ahead.
those years, I tend to, hog the conversation.
It's interesting.
But when we made Two Virgins, we weren't worried about commercial. We just wanted to put out a statement of where it was at. We wanted to share the thing.
Naively.
Well, not naively at all, because some people accepted it and a lot of people
That's
didn't.
true.
But the thing had an effect. That the fact that, an Elvis Presley would take his clothes off and expose. Now, we had other shots for that cover, which made us look a lot more sexy and attractive. Believe me,
It's true.
If you pose a certain way and you just do it like this.
Better.
And there were a couple more shots that later came out in the calendar with the Live Peace in Toronto album, where we look a little more attractive as a couple in a star kind of way. But we deliberately chose the one where we were standing there, in all our glory, like a little flab around the waist, the legs a little, nothing pretty about it. We wanted to say, we met, we're in love, we want to share it. And it was a kind of statement as well of an awakening for me too, This Beatle thing that you've heard all about, this is how I am really. This is me naked with the woman I love. You want to share it? And people did and people didn't, but now you can't get it for $200, Two Virgins, right? So that's the way it goes. But of course now, she got more interested in pop and I got more interested in avant-garde, so we sort of blended in like that. And I think now we've kind of we're finding a meeting ground, which is only really developed through Double Fantasy.
Where was that time that you got more involved in pop?
Oh, well,
Do you know about
around approximately Infinite Universe, I think I started to understand, well, it's interesting, and there's a lot of things you can say with it. And so, but even then, around that time, I was more interested in expanding the media of pop into something more theatrical, like Bertolt Brecht type of thing. And so all the songs were long, I think.
Well, on Approximately Into the Universe, what year was that?
That was 1971.
Yeah, they were very
or two.
theatrical pieces.
Theatrical.
In 71
One or two, I'm not sure
one or two, something
one.
like that. And they were theatrical. And some of the ideas that she wanted both of us to do then, I must say I was more square then than I am now in a way. That I wish we'd done, because now other people have done them, and I would say, no, I'm not going to do it. Are you kidding? I'm not doing that. I would start reserving, I don't want to do that, We're in enough trouble as it is, let's not do that.
And also I started to feel guilty because, for instance, Open Your Box was a good track, And
That was on that was Approximately
Yeah.
Into the Universe, also the B-side of Powers of the People, just
Right.
to let them know where we're at.
It was not in Approximately Infinite Universe, and it was in 1971, early 1971. And he wrote a song called Part of the People, which is a very powerful song. And then my Open Your Box was on the B-side, and of course that was banned in America, and that sort of thing started to happen. So I felt that maybe I was doing a disfavor to him in a way because, well, he could be number one all the time, but now because he's involved with somebody a bit radical or this and that he's getting that, you know, well, if you ban the B-side, you're banning the single, you know, there's that sort of thing. And I was starting to feel guilty a bit. But on the other hand, well, we did a lot of interesting things, and we were having fun, you know, as well. It was exciting. And also, like Sometime in New York City, which is, again, Bertolt Brecht, and there are many interesting tracks. I mean, Woman is the Nigger of the World, which is
was
the first...
pre... That was banned, Woman is the Nigger of the World, because of the word nigger. Now, I had Ebony and Jet both say they are not offended, and we went down there with Dick Gregory, and just in case there were any questions there. And the statement, Woman is the Nigger of the World, was made by Yoko in 1967 or 8 to an English woman's magazine called Nova, which was a kind of Vogue. And she was on the cover, and the title was Woman is the Nigger of the World. I immediately stole the title and wrote a song. It didn't come out till 71. And there was all this hullabaloo about the word nigger, but the hullabaloo was from the white community, you know, not from the black community, because they understood where it was coming from.
Because they don't think that they're niggers, and that's why they don't care. But, I mean, the whites, you know, basically thought, well, niggers, well, that's terrible.
She came from a background of classical music, studying piano at 5, and all the things that rich kids do, you know. And Schoenberg and Webern, she'd studied at Sarah Lawrence and all that. I didn't know any of that stuff, and she was turning me on to it. Even Bertolt Brecht. I knew when we did Sometime in New York City, to me we were doing a newspaper. So one would rush it out into print, you see. So there were mistakes, say a little harmony wasn't perfect. We didn't go back and perfect every note. We just printed it out, you know, and sometimes there's words missing or something like that. And it was later that she said, well, you know what we did there? I said, no, well, we got into a lot of trouble, that's all I know. And, you know, the harmony's funny, you know, something, you know. Because we had her idea again. She had Chairman Mao and Richard Nixon dancing naked on the cover. It wasn't really their bodies, we just stuck their heads on. Well, the record company stuck a label on it in the supermarkets, and you couldn't even get it off when you went home, you know. And there was no genitals, nothing on it. But anyway, and I started getting down about that record thing. It was a mistake. Even though we tried to say something about women, we tried to say something about love and peace or whatever, the war, that, you know, we got into so much trouble. And so she then took me to see Richard Foreman's production of the Threepenny Opera of Bertolt Brecht, which I don't know when it was originally out, in the 20s or 30s. I said, oh, I see, so we're not alone, you know. I don't know what happened to Brecht when he first put that out, but it was the same idea, meaning, you know, to make a statement on the society right now, right away, and no BS. Just say it, you know. I think this is wrong, that's right. This is my opinion.
You know, just music alone is one of the things that was an ask. A good time. Is it to educate, or is it to entertain, or is it both? Is it or doesn't
well, we were enjoying it
communicate.
too, but communicate. Yeah.
Communicate is the thing. It's that need to communicate. And
whatever it is, it doesn't necessarily have to be a political.
No, but politics was in the air those days. Come on, I mean, you know, you couldn't avoid it, right? And being artists, when we get into something, we get into it. You know what I mean? We wanted to be right there, down on the front lines. You know, as we always said to everybody, with flowers, but still right down there. You know, we want to go all the way with it, and I think we did go all the way with it too. You know, our intentions were good.
Well, Woman is the Nigger of the World being the most heavy militant feminist thing that was coming out then.
Yes,
probably
true.
Still even today.
No, that was the first
It was
and
before
the
Helen
only
Reddy's I Am Woman.
feminist song that was made by a guy, you know.
It was
And
before
I
Helen
really think it
Reddy,
was
I know
very-
that.
oh, sure, of
Right?
course.
And she did Sisters, Oh Sisters on the B-side, a reggae version.
But the point was, I mean, you know, this is something that's going to dawn on somebody else, I mean, people later. But he was always doing it, you know. And so we were very proud of that album in that sense. Until it was really knocked, we didn't feel ashamed. And, you know, that year, Rolling Stone selected us as the most boring couple of the year or something, you know. And really sort of knocked us about it. Oh, all right.
Well, if it's boring, then we won't do it anymore.
But everything, every statement to come from the two of you has been taken as, what are they doing? Whether it's extremely radical or perceived as kooky or avant-garde, everything has this hard, tough, I want to get something across to you people. How do you feel? I mean, are you trying to get something across, or were you?
It's to share it. It's like, you know, when you've been somewhere beautiful like Bali and all your friends haven't been, and you want to say, my God, I was in Bali, man, and it's just the greatest place ever, and it's, you know, and it's that's how we are about things. We get enthusiastic and excited. The same as when it sort of dawned on me that love was the answer when I was younger. On the Beatles' Rubber Soul album, the first expression of it was a song called The Word. The word is love. In the good and the bad books I have read, whatever, where the word is love seemed like the underlying theme to the universe or to everything that was worthwhile got down to this love thing. And it was the struggle to love, be loved, and express that. You know, there's something about love that's fantastic, even though I'm not always a loving person. I want to be that. I want to be as loving as possible, or in the Christian sense as Christ-like as possible, in the Hindu sense as Gandhi-esque as possible. And we always approach different. And when I met her, even though we were from two different schools of thought, as it were, we found that was the common denominator. That's why we became the love and peace couple. Because before I met her, she was protesting against war in a black bag in Trafalgar Square. And when we met and we discussed what we wanted to do together, what we wanted to do was carry on, me in my love, 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 and her in her peace, 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 put it together. That's how we came out with the bed in. Because I couldn't go down with John Lennon and lie in a bag in Trafalgar Square because I might get attacked those days. It was dangerous. It was dangerous for her, even as an individual protest. So we developed this thing of how to express what we both believe in together the best we can. And, you know, so you say, going back to that thing, well, you came back. I went to a disco for the first time since 1967, when I was in Bermuda, just before we made this album. And I was finally dragged to a disco by an assistant of mine. And I went there, and upstairs they were playing disco, and downstairs I heard Rock Lobster by the B-52s. And I said, that's Yoko? And somebody said, I thought there was two records going at once or something. Because I thought it was so her, I thought this person studied her. I said, get the axe out, call the wife. Gee, have you heard this? I called her, I said, you won't believe this, I was in a disco and there's somebody doing your voice. I said, this time they're ready for us, man. We can go on and do our stuff without even changing a thing. We could go on right back. And I dug out the old records we'd made. I dug out the B-52s, and then I talked to my assistant who tried to turn me on to them 18 months before, but I said, no, I'm not into the music. I didn't want to hear anything. He was trying to play me Pretenders and Madness and all that stuff, and I didn't want to listen to it. And I said, get me some more of this. What's going on out there? He brought all this, you know, cookie, whatever you want to call it, stuff in, and we looked at each other and we said, ha-ha. They finally caught up to what we were trying to do all the time, which is another form of expression. And we thought, this time, surely they're going to understand it. And here we are doing it. Again, it's not that much different from what we did. If you take the Plastic Ono Band albums, which are titleless, I call mine Mother for reference. It had Mother and God and a couple of tracks like that on. And her album, which was a same cover but a kind of reverse trick. The first track on her thing is called Why. You play that, and you play something modern now, and see if we weren't on the right track in 1969 and not.
Right on is the word.
Right on we were. Right on.
Even now, you know, I have this thing about, oh, if Yoko is on the album, oh, she's going to be the freak, so, you know, let's not buy the album. So I was very worried for John's sake.
I sat her down and said, listen. She doesn't like listening. She likes to either do or do something else. Yeah, I held her in the chair and said, listen to this Rock Lobster. Listen to this stuff, you know.
So what I did was, in this album, I'm not really freaking out so much. Even in moving on, when I do that sort of end bit a little bit, you know, just sort of modestly. I was worried, you know, again, maybe some sort of record industry people or something would say, oh, Yoko is doing a freak number, and, you know, that might kill his chance again. So I was very careful this time.
But I wouldn't have done it if we hadn't done it together. That was the point which your insecurity makes you say that. But the fact is, if I couldn't have worked with her, I wouldn't have bothered. I wouldn't enjoy just putting an album out by myself, having to do this by myself, having to go to the studio by myself, because I've had the sort of, even though I was in a group, I've had that kind of game before. You know, I didn't want to work with another guy even. You know, the fact of man and wife working together and presenting ourselves as man and wife, not as a sexual object male or her even separately as a sexual object female that sings love songs and is available to the audience. It's not that. We're presenting ourselves as a couple, and to work with your best friend is a joy, and I don't intend to stop it. If we hadn't had the success we'd had with this record, I would have been quite happy because I know I can live without it. The Beatles had the top 5 numbers at one time, right? So I can never get more than I've ever had in that respect. I'm not saying I could never have 4 or 5 numbers at once because that's wishing myself bad luck. But let's face the reality. I've had the boyhood thing of being the Elvis and getting my own spot on the show. I want to be with my best friend, my wife. Who could ask for anything more? I'd sooner do something else together than not work together. And that's why I think that comes across in the work now. And we feel like this is just the start now, you see. Double Fantasies, this is the first album. I know we worked together before, we even made albums together before, but we feel like this is the first album. I feel like nothing happened before today.
So what is Double Fantasy? What does that mean?
Well, you know where it came from?
You better tell.
I was taking Sean and the nanny and the family to a little, except for Mother, who was here selling cows, in Bermuda to the Botanical Gardens for lunch, to the Italian restaurant, because I could get espresso and Sean could get some junk food. And I was just walking in, I looked down, and it was a botanical garden, and it said, we're in the office, folks, that's why it's buzzing.
Excuse me. Yes.
It said, Frisia, Double Fantasy. And it was some flowers. And I just thought, Double Fantasy, that's a great title. Because it has so many meanings that you couldn't even begin to think what it means. So it means everything you can think of. I mean, it's a double couple. It's real life, but it's still a fantasy because it's now in plastic and in photograph, and it's fantastic. And it's just sort of seemed to be perfect for a title of the album. And there's 2 of us, and it just sort of says it all somehow without really saying anything. It says everything. And it's a flower, actually.
And also, you know, in the 10 years we learned that John has his own fantasy and I have mine too, you know. And that's all right, you see. And we don't have to unify our thoughts totally. I mean, there's an overall plan that we have, or a dream that we have, which we share, you know. But then we come from a totally different background, I mean, in a sense of men and women. And that's fine. So we're showing the difference of the fantasies too, you know.
That's why it wasn't just all love songs, losing you and moving on. We're not presenting ourselves as the perfect couple because we don't want to get into that bag either, right? Because we're trying to present what it is, you know, a relationship that lots of other people are having, but they're maybe not songwriters and they don't express it that way. And the letters we're getting back are from couples, apart from the kids who just like it as music. The main excitement is the letters from people who are married with kids, or not necessarily married, but relating together and realizing that we're not selling ourselves as the perfect couple. We have our problems. We've had our problems. No doubt we'll have problems. But, you know, we're trying. We want to stay together. We want to be a family. And that's the kind of level we're relating to. I am not aiming at 16-year-olds. If they can dig it, please dig it. But when I was singing and writing this and working with her, I was visualizing all the people of my age group from the 60s.
That's true.
Being in their 30s and 40s now, just like me, and having wives and children, and having gone through everything together, I'm singing to them. I hope the young kids like it as well, but I'm really talking to the people that grew up with me. I'm saying, here I am now. How are you? How's your relationship going? Did you get through it all? Wasn't the 70s a drag, you know? Here we are, well, let's try and make the 80s good, you know? Because it's still up to us to make what we can of it. It's not out of our control. I still believe in love, peace. I still believe in positive thinking when I can do it. I'm not always positive, but when I am, I try and project it.
Well, overall, we're getting more and more positive, aren't we? Because
we
somehow,
survive.
I
That's
know,
the thing. You have
which
to
is
give
fantastic,
thanks to God or whatever it is up there, the fact that we all survived. We all survived Vietnam or Watergate or the tremendous upheaval of the whole world that's changed. We were the hip ones in the 60s, but the world is not like the 60s anymore. The whole map's changed, and we're going into an unknown future, but we're still all here. We're still, while there's life, there's hope.
So it sounds like instead of the down litany of the early 70s, where all the things you don't believe in, now it's...
Exactly, and that's why I put the ting, ting, ting on the beginning of starting over. And I hope somebody would catch on, but it's easier if I explain it, because I like to be mysterious. A little part of me still likes to be. But in actual fact, the beginning of Mother, the Plastic Ono album, you hear this litany, boom, very slow church bell, which was like a death knell, I don't believe in, and the Freudian things about mother and father, and that was a kind of negative positive. I was trying to make a positive out of a negative, but it was heavy going. And the reason this one goes ting, ting, ting is to show that I've come through, and whoever's listening must have come through or they wouldn't be here. And that's because I always consider my work one piece, whether it be with Beatles, David Bowie, Elton John, Yoko Ono, and I consider that my work won't be finished until I'm dead and buried, and I hope that's a long, long time. So to me, it's part of one whole piece of work from the time I became public to now. And that's the connecting point between that, and you hit it right on the head. And the 80s, it's like we got a new chance,
So the multi-year process that went into this evolution to starting over, well, obviously it was filled with a lot of bad stuff as well as good stuff.
Of course. Yeah.
What was the worst for you?
The worst was being separated from Yoko and realizing that I really, really needed to be with her, wanted to be with her, and could not literally survive without her as a functioning human being. I just went to pieces, and I didn't realize that I needed her so much.
What do you think is the work that reflected this feeling or the period?
Well, that period I did Walls and Bridges, which
wasn't bad.
It's technically okay, and if you pull it apart as production or format of the songs, there's nothing wrong with them, but there's an air of loss. There's an air of it's not the same kind of cloud. It's not the same kind of thing as the Mother album where it's a positive negative. It's saying this is where I'm at and this is how it's going. And you could say it was a film where you came out crying from that movie. Walls and Bridges has this air of misery, but you can't put your hand on it. There's a kind of cloud around it. If you look closely, you can say Bless You is a nice song, nothing wrong with it, good construction, good harm. You can go into it and look at it and can't find the fault as a piece of art. But overall, there's some horrible confusion and loneliness in it that is apparent from the whole album that it gives off.
Number 9, Dream, always seemed to me the most wistful, longing song.
That's how I felt, my dear. I mean, I was haunted, all right, because I realized that I needed her more than she needed me, and I always thought the boot was on the other foot. And that's as honest as I can get. And the image is always, because the pop star, and Burt Reynolds said it the other night, and God bless him, that he's the women have always kicked him out. And Yoko kicked me out. I didn't go off on I'm going to be a rock and roll bachelor. She literally said, get out. And I said, okay, I'm going. I'm going bachelor free. I'd been married all my life. I'd been married before Yoko, and I immediately married Yoko, so I'd never been a bachelor since I was 20 or something. So I thought, it was god-awful. It was awful.
Isn't that the way we all survive? Isn't that the way we protect by doing that, going through that kind of, if somebody does that, you say, oh, cool, I'm not going to...
Yeah, I was going to be mystical. Yeah. But you see, I call it the 7-year hitch. I don't know what it was, but it was horrific, and it took me a long time to catch on because I drank too much, and, a lot of it's known already, and I don't want to keep gurging it up, but I wasn't too, I was out of control, and nobody was looking after me, and I needed somebody to love me, and there was nobody there to support me, and I fell apart. Another thing I want to say about Burt Reynolds the other night, Barbara Walters asked him, what do you want to be remembered as? And he said, the best father that ever was. Yeah.
That's
and I
beautiful.
thought, thank God, you know, I began to feel maybe I'm the only father that's interested in relating, and is it going to become, oh, John Lennon's now selling this family business, and he's been through peace and love, and now he's coming on like daddy and all that. And I'm only talking about it because that's what I've done, and that's how I feel. And admitting that it is that I'm more feminist now than I was when I sang Woman is the Nigger. I was intellectually a feminist then, but now I feel as though at least I've put not my money, but my body where my mouth was, and tried to really live up to my own preachings, as it were. And to see somebody like Burt Reynolds, who is the world's #1 male star over all the pop stars worldwide, to have the guts to say he wants to be known as a father, I thought, oh great, I'm not going to be alone on this one.
No,
And I get
good,
letters from people saying, I'm not alone. I get letters from guys saying, well, I'm doing it too, you know, you're not the only one.
Kind of destroys that macho, well, let's see how many women we can be with.
Well, isn't it time we destroyed it? Because where's it got us all these thousands of years? Are we still going to have to be clubbing each other to death? Do I have to arm wrestle you to have a relationship with you as another male? Do I have to seduce her or come on with her that I'm going to lay her because she's a female, or come on at some sexual... Can we not have a relationship on some other level besides that same old stuff all the time? I mean, it's kid stuff, man. It's really kid stuff. And I don't want to go through life as pretending to be James Dean or Marlon Brando, you know? In a movie, not in real life, even in a movie version of them.
Just the fact that you're living so many of the things that you were singing about, talking about, trying to get across years ago, does that make you think that maybe you were a little bit false or just image-oriented back then?
No, I think that it wasn't image-oriented. It was just going as fast as... I mean, not only the fact that we got together and boom, it was like an explosion, but there was also the Beatle thing about us getting together and whether they split because of us or not, or whatever the reason, all that stuff. The Beatles were splitting, the Beatles were arguing, John and Yoko was getting together, the anti-Vietnam crusades were going on all over, and we were involved in so many things, and we were putting out so much work, and we were making movies, making public appearances, performing at shows, and traveling the world and doing all that. There was no time to reflect. There was only time to put out immediate impressions of what was happening.
Well, we were really honest about it.
We
You can
weren't
say
being-
that, you know, maybe we were naive, but still we were very honest about everything we did, you know.
That's why I refer to the word is love on Rubber Soul, straight through to all you need is love, to give peace a chance, to imagine there's no countries, imagine no war, in other words, to write to this moment now.
And
But
starting
the thing
over.
is, instead of this album doesn't say imagine the whole world like that, because I've said that in a way. What I'm saying now is, now let's put the spotlight on the two of us and show how we're trying to imagine there's no wars, to live that love and peace, rather than sing about it only.
When you two sing about love, is it possible to define what love is, or is it just is that a personal thing between each two? Is it all different?
I don't know.
Well,
I
look,
think
I
it's-
mean, love is
what
love,
love
isn't it? I mean, you know it too.
we know what it is, but you can't define it.
You know, I mean, everybody knows what love is. I mean, it's not something that you can explain, but it's a very strong energy and power.
I tried to define it on the Plastic Ono
It's like a magic-
album with a song
magical
called Love.
power.
Was Love on Plastic Ono or on Imagine?
Yes, it was on
Well,
plastic.
I tried to define it as in my own way then, like love is real, real is love. And it's very simple lyric, or even simplicity. I don't know which way it would go, but what can you call it? You can say love is like a flower.
It's
you
like
know,
saying, you
you
know,
can't
what is
get-
air? And you
Yeah.
say H2O, it doesn't mean anything. You know?
It's whatever it is when it feels good is love, and the other one
It's
is not
not love.
you know?
On that same album, when you first sang Hold On, did you have any idea of the things you were going to go through? That
No.
No
Amazing,
idea.
isn't it?
No idea.
Oh, but the other thing is, you know, because John explained it, so I have to explain my side of it, is that it's almost like, maybe it's almost like John and I sort of a prototype of that situation. But because the world was pressuring me so much, I mean, really too much, and really suffocating me in a sense that I can't work anymore. And when Joan was in L.A., I really had enough space to think about it and all that. I realized it was the society, it wasn't John so much, it was the society that's really messing the whole thing up, you know. And when John came to New York once to sort of wanting to come back, and I said... And
Not quite on his knees, but one knee.
And, you know, he sort of sang that Bless You song to me, you know, and I was crying, actually.
Because that was the Yoko.
And we were just sort of holding each other and crying because I thought, my God, it's beautiful and everything. But still I thought, no, let's not get emotional. Let's not get tricked again, because if I accept him back, that whole shebang is going to start again, you know. So let's be cool about this, you know. And I was crying, but I said, okay, well, look, I'll see you later, you know. And it was hard for me, too. And what I'm saying is that, maybe on a different level, maybe, but most women are in that position that I was in. And so that if men and women are going to come back together again, then men has to really make a big step forward, you know, like to try to extend their hand and try to really almost make up for what women lost or in the society, so to speak. So it's hard for men too. But that's the only way I think it's going to happen, you know, because, I mean, I tried my best, but still, if I were to just be normally healthy, I had to get that from John. If I didn't, I would have gone crazy anyway. So, you know, it wouldn't have been a relationship. You know, he would have had a wife that accepted him back, but I would be in a mental hospital or something, you know. My wife is in a mental hospital.
Well, you know, I'm that kind of guy, you know.
Yoko, when you first heard Woman, did that
Yes.
make you cry?
Oh, yes, yes.
I played that for, this is just, you know, be real quick and then I'll shut up. I played that for my wife and I told her, pretend.
She cried.
Well,
What you're trying to do for a lot of
group, it's really hitting.
well, because that's what I am, you know. I'm 40, I want to talk to the people my age. I'm happy if the young people like it, and I'm happy if the old people like it. I'm talking to guys and gals that have been through what we went through together. The 60s group that has survived the war, the drugs, the politics, the violence on the street, the whole shebang, that we've survived it, and we're here, and I'm talking to them. And the woman song is to Yoko, but it's to all women. And because my role in society, or any artist or poet's role, is to try and express what we all feel, not to tell people how to feel, not as a preacher, not as a leader, but as a reflection of us all. And it's like, that's the job of the artist in society, not to, if they're not some alienated being living on the outskirts of town. It's fine to live on the outskirts of town, but artists must reflect what we all are. That's what it's about, artists, or poets, or whatever you want to call it. And that's what I'm trying to express on behalf of all the men to all the women. Through my own feelings about women, when it dawned on me, you know, my God, it is the other half of the sky, as the late, great Sherman McDougall said, right? I mean, they are the other half of the sky, and without them there is nothing. And without us there's nothing. There's only the two together, creates children, creates society. So what's all this BS about, you know, women are this and men are that? We're all human, man. We're all human. And I am trying to say it to Yoko, but to all women, you know. On behalf of all men, in a way, if that's taking it too much on myself, I feel that artists are that, they're a reflection of society.
That's true, yeah. But I mean,
mirrors.
The thing that I went through when we were separated was amazing. I mean, down to if I'm outside or something, reporters would ask, well, do you think John's going to ever get back to you? Or, you know, that sort of nonsense, you know. Or poor Yoko, you know, lonely in Dakota all by herself because her husband is, or whatever. And it's that image is so humiliating. But I wasn't going to stand up and say something because that would humiliate his macho image, you know. But the other thing is, well, so he was having a headache because he got drunk or something and he had a hangover or something. So that's men, you know, that's sort of all right, creating his own headache. But I was getting a headache because of all these people saying, you know, sort of nonsense.
Well, me and Bert have owned up.
Well, double fantasy doesn't seem to be at all the first fantasy or the first what-if situation. Imagine, of course, said, what if this, what if that?
Yeah, yeah.
How did that come out for you?
How do you mean? How did Imagine come out?
Yeah, were you really wondering to yourself, or were you trying to get other people to look and say, hey, what if we did it like this?
Well, it was, it should really have said Lennon Ono on that song, because she contributed a lot to that song. And Imagine was straight lift out of her book Grapefruit. There are pieces in there that say imagine this, imagine that. So I didn't give her credit. La 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 la. But the point being, yes.
The album was dedicated to me instead.
Because people, so I dedicated the album to her, which is a cop-out, but I was only as honest as I could be then, you see. You can only be as what you think, as best you can at the time. But the point of the song, right, is, because people keep saying, well, what were you doing? What are you doing in the bed in? What are you doing in Two Virgins? What are you doing together? What are you doing? What are you doing? That's where we first came out with, all we're saying is give peace a chance. Literally came out of my mouth as a spoken word to a reporter after being asked millions and millions of times, what are you doing? Well, all I'm saying is give peace a chance, not that I have the answer or I've got a new format for society, because I don't, and I don't believe anybody else has. Show me the plan, as Revolution said. The Beatles' Revolution, my Revolution song says, show me the plan before we knock all the buildings down, But give peace a chance imagine is the same thing. You hit it right in the head. It's just imagine if there were no countries. Not no places where we each had our little spot. But imagine there was a time, when you didn't have to have a passport to go from country to country. What kind of world are we creating? Really, it used to be you could go around, What is this game that you can't get, that somehow this is America and then just across the field is Canada, and that you have to have all kinds of papers and pictures and stamps and passports and, when you think about it, it's insane. It's insane carving up the world into little patches like that. We're all different.
But there will always be the Idi Amins and the Ayatollahs and whoever that kind of make that very difficult at some point.
But I don't know my history well enough to know how people got on in the past, But when Marco Polo went to visit the Chinese, no doubt it was risky leaving Rome and going through all those countries. Or when the Crusaders left, not as a massed army, but just as peasants getting up and trickling off across, they must have gone through blood. And of course you're going to come across maybe there's always going to be nuts, I don't know.
No,
but still, it's the concept of imagining no countries, imagining no religion, not imagining no God. Although you're entitled to do that too. Imagining no denominations. Imagining that we revere Jesus Christ, Mohammed, Krishna, Milarepa equally. We don't have to worship either one, that we don't have to. But imagine there's no Catholic Protestant, no Jew Christian, that we allow it all, freedom of religion for real, for real. Just imagine it. Would it be so terrible?
You see, because the point is, people like George Orwell, and by the way, incidentally, he's a guy too. But all these guys have projected very negative view of the future. And imagining a projection is a very strong magic power, That's the way society was created. And so because they're setting up all these negative images, and of course that's going to create the society. So we were trying to create a more positive image, which is, of course, going to set up another kind of society. And, even in all this, we always had, there's a human race dream, like we always wanted to fly. So now we have planes, And the next probably dream is wanting to be peaceful.
Well, the other great dream of mankind, one was to fly, which might have taken us a long time, but it took somebody to imagine it first.
Yes, kept imagining.
Second was reach the moon, right?
Yes, which we reached.
Which we reached. Now, it was an American in an American rocket, because that was the way history was at that time. But mankind reached the moon because they said one giant step for mankind. It was for all of us we went to the moon.
We were always saying, like wanting the moon or,
But nowadays, even football players are doing it, right? Which we were doing then, which is projecting the future in a positive way. Now people will say, no, you're naive, you're dumb, you're stupid. Okay, it might have hurt us on a personal level to be called names, but what we were doing, you can call it magic, meditation, projection of goal, which business people do. They have courses on it. The footballers do it. They pray, they meditate before the game, they visualize themselves winning. Billie Jean King visualizes every move on the court. What we were doing, we were early pioneers of that movement, which is to project a future which we can have, goals which we can reach. Right? People project their own future. So what we wanted to do was say, let's imagine a nice future. She's right. The males like even Aldous Huxley and George Orwell, who produced 1984, you look into Orwell's life, it was all torture and this, that, and the other, and he was brought up in a certain environment in a male-dominated society full of Marxist stuff about Spain, and they were all from the whatever, that period when they had those dreams of socialism answering everything, right? And their dreams fell to dust after the war, and then they wrote these books projecting this horrific Big Brother, monsters controlled by robots, and even now, I think these people that project the space fantasies are projecting war in space continually, with women in miniskirts, available sexual objects, and the men with super macho John Wayne guns on their hips.
Big
I'm
shoulders.
saying it's time for the people to get hip to that, man, because they're projecting our future. Do we want our children to be out in space, or grandchildren fighting, maybe not Russians, but Venusians in space? You see, if it works for a football player and a tennis player, it can work for all of us. We have to project a positive future. I think that's what Christ and Mohammed and those people were saying in their way, in their time, for their society.
If we look back, if we think of the 60s as somewhat more of a liberal time, the country or the world was leaning to the left, if you want to say that. We just finished an election. If all the analysts are correct, this country has made a swing to the right. England, with the election of Thatcher, and making that move somehow to a more conservative stance. And you wrote a song called "Power to the People." The power to the people. If it is true that 53% of the people in this country voted at all, or even cared, do you think they have more power?
Oh, sure,
today, or
definitely.
do they have less?
They always had a lot of power. I mean, people like politicians rely on the fact that the people are not thinking, And if each person, all of us, would really be centered, and really start thinking for ourselves, then they don't have a chance. Because we're like a really very powerful gods and goddesses,
In retrospect, if I was trying to say that same thing again, I would say the people have the power. I don't mean power of the gun. They have the power to make and create the society they want. We all created this together. It wasn't a few kings or a few generals. We might have invested the power in Napoleon, or the Germans might have been hypnotized by Hitler. Does that make the Germans different from the rest of the human race? No way. It could have happened anywhere. It just happened there at that moment in time. Okay? And also, the world, we do breathe in and we breathe out. So you go to the left, you go to the right. It's in the long term, it's meaningless. Even since I was conscious of politics, it was the right in the 50s, the left in the 60s, and sort of nothing in the 70s. And it's going to the right. If everybody's going to panic and just react to an illusionary right wing that's going to kill everybody, well, that's what you're going to get. I believe that it doesn't have to be like that just because the guy has a right wing or supposedly has a different political view than other people. Now, personally, I've never voted in my life. How do you like that? And there's a Beatles book that was handed out in the 1964 tour, a book of photographs, and on the top of it, it shows this young John Lennon in his usual big mouth way saying, no phony politician's ever going to get through to me. Well, I take the phony politician out because I don't think all politicians are phony. I don't think, I won't categorize even politicians now because I've learned a lot since I was 23. But I don't think politics is the only answer. You see. I think this idea that we elect these leaders and then expect them to do miracles for us. Now, Kennedy is a big dream for everybody because he didn't live to fulfill or let us down. And it's not to negate what Kennedy was and what he means to people. But the reality is, had he lived, how do you know how well he would have done at the time, right? Or how the war would have gone and how everything would have gone. So investing leaders with supernatural powers, whether they be pop stars, politicians, or movie stars, or football heroes, it don't work. It just doesn't work. Because we put them up on the pedestal and immediately we want to knock them off. So Reagan's going to go in there. All the so-called rightists are all going to be waiting for him to do what they want. And when he doesn't, because it's impossible, because the presidency is such a vast, awe-inspiring position for any man to be in, and it means a lot more than some local right-left group, that he cannot possibly fulfill the dreams of the right wing, the same way as Carter or Kennedy could never fulfill the dreams of the left wing. It is too much invested in one man, one group, and I don't believe in that.
Well, that's what Toffler
I think that,
I mean, he says that basically it's all an outdated system.
It is an outdated system.
200,
Exactly.
years
It has no...
It can't work no matter who.
That's why I'm from the generation that doesn't vote. I will never vote for one of those people because I know none of them can ever do anything for me.
But there's a grassroots movement, you know. I'm not talking about underground or radical or anything like that, but every community counts. I mean, we have to first take care of our household, our family, and our community, our city, you know. And if each person would think that way, it's going to work.
That's
Instead of
one
investing our
points.
energies to one person
But
or a government.
It doesn't mean that...
When you speak of power, and you have people, a number of people at least, if you look at polls and people that do research, that say, well, it's the oil companies and everything, it's corporate structures running our lives, and we can't do anything. We're totally powerless, so we're just kind of apathetic with giving up, which seems to be, if you believe what the media tells us is taking place. I wonder, that's the question.
Yeah, but
No,
who
no, no,
believes
no.
the media? Investing the
That's
media
not
in such
taking-
power
Yes,
is
what
a
is this?
joke as well. You know?
Media is
who
not
gave
the
the
truth.
media the I don't believe pop stars, football players, and movie stars are separate from society. It's just that we've developed this thing for whatever reason that we think we're broken up into these fragmented pieces, countries, sexes, races. It's a joke. It's as Neanderthal as the political system. It's just, it's just like, I can't say what it should be, you see, because I can only say I don't believe in that stuff, and that's
Well,
enough.
In a way that we are all creating these illusions and then trusting the illusion. And media is not the truth. Politician is not the truth. I mean, truth lies in us, all of us, each of us, And if we can just bring this power inside us to cope with the daily life and cope with the situation, whatever you're in, then they'll be all right.
That's a very holistic approach, not
Well,
like...
exactly. Holistic
Yeah.
is what we need, not just in the health field. We need it in the political field, in the global field, and stop this paranoia of 90-year-old men playing macho games with the world and possibly the galaxy.
That's
That's
your
what
daddy.
they're doing.
you
A very
know.
powerful position, the fact that you can make statements and you can put an album out like Double
We are
Fantasy
fully
and
aware
do
of
a
our
lot of
power.
things
Yes, we're fully aware of our power, whatever that is, and we nurture it and we try to be very careful about our own life because of that, and also try to communicate and, communicate as much as we can with that power, But all of you do, in a way. So, in degrees, and then that's what you should use, and that's what it means to communicate and to tell each other, reassure each other that we are here together,
There's something underlying what Yoko's been saying, is that we do have a lot of power, and a lot of people just don't know how to use and don't believe enough in themselves to use that power that they have inside them.
But it is changing, I must say. Look, when I say, football players do it and businessmen are doing it, I mean, the fact is, people are believing in projecting their own power, visualizing goals, visualizing positiveness, and doing these things that
It's a
are
different
changing,
age, yeah.
changing the world. It all takes time. You see, I think that the bit about, the 60s, we're all full of hope, and then everybody got depressed, and the 70s were terrible. That attitude that everybody has, that the 60s was therefore negated for being naive and dumb, And the 70s is really where it's at, which means, you know, putting makeup on and dancing in the disco, which was fine for the 70s. But I don't negate the 60s, I don't negate the 70s. The seeds that were planted in the 60s, and possibly they were planted generations before, but the seed that whatever happened in the 60s, the flowering of that is in the feminization of society, the meditation, the positive learning that people are doing in all walks of life. That is a direct result of the opening up of the 60s. Now maybe in the 60s we were naive, and like children, everybody went back to their room and said, well, we didn't get a wonderful world of just flowers and peace and happy chocolate, and it wasn't just pretty and beautiful all the time. And that's what everybody did. We didn't get everything we wanted, just like babies. And everybody went back to their rooms and sulked, and we're just going to play rock and roll and not do anything else. We're going to stay in our room, and the world is a nasty, horrible place because it didn't give us everything we cried for. Right? Crying for it wasn't enough. The thing the 60s did was show us the possibility and the responsibility that we all had. It wasn't the answer, it just gave us a glimpse of the possibility. And the 70s, everybody's going, nyeh, 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 and possibly in the 80s, maybe everybody would say, okay, well, let's project the positive side of life again. You know, the world's been going on a long time, right? It's probably going to go on a long time.
But also, you know,
So
the 60s was sort of really going out and communicating and expanding. But in the 70s, people think that nothing happened. But in a way, we went back inside us. There's a lot of very interesting magical psychic things that happened, you know, and people got tuned into. And so with the 60s expansion and 70s knowledge, I think 80s is going to be another step up, you know, and be beautiful, you know.
Do you think if people had realized the holistic potential for healing and growth within them, that would have stopped, say, a lot of people from running to, certain movements, religious, psychological, whatever, for sudden answers?
Yeah, I think, but there's that part of us all, including myself, that wants to belong to some group. No, I don't mean a rock group, a group in society, because it makes you feel secure when times are hard, or there seems to be a threat of war or a threat of monetary crisis, and the media, with help from the public and the politicians, hype it up that it's the end of the world or the end of America or the end of financial empire or whatever it is. And everybody gets insecure and wants to belong to a group, including me. I was always wanting to belong to something, even though I always wanted to be the rebel on the outside. Part of me always wanted to be part of it. And it's an insecurity. I'm not saying that anybody who's become a born-again Christian or a born-again whatever the other groups are. But in general, to me, it looks like a sign of insecurity, because I recognize it in myself, that when I do go through that terrible insecurity of the world is collapsing and going crazy, it doesn't make sense anymore, wouldn't it be easier if I was just along with these people, this few hundred or few thousand that all think the same way, and it makes life easier like that?
But
And
there's
I
a
think
good
if
reason
people
for that.
realize that it's not the end of the world, the apocalypse is not going to happen, no matter what some person might threaten us with. Those people have been waving those end of the world. I remember those the end of the world is nigh cartoons when I was 12. You know, my whole generation, our whole generation, was brought up with the H-bomb. I remember Bertrand Russell and all the H-bomb, and the reason that we were rock and rollers apparently in the 50s was because the bomb might go off any minute. Okay, so
Drills in school, okay.
right.
Outside and
But you know, I mean, I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't think it's going to happen. And what happens if it happens?
Well,
Just what happens if they drop the bombs all over the earth? What's going to happen? Somebody going to answer that? We're either going to live or we're going to die. If we're dead, we'll have to deal with that. If we're alive, we've got to deal with being alive. So worrying about whether Wall Street or the apocalypse is going to come in the form of the great beast is not going to do us any good day to day.
you mentioned when you did this album, you were talking mainly, if the kids like it, great, but the 30s, people in the 30s and 40s,
Yeah.
who are really the bulk of, that we just happen to be that baby boom generation.
Yeah.
The aging of America now, we all are getting older. But is if the cliche is true that supposedly we all become more conservative or mellow or whatever you want to call it as we get older. That's what our parents said. Wait till, sure you're a radical now, but wait till about 20 years or 10 years, come back and you're going to be. Do you see that happening, or do you see that happening to yourself? I mean, listening to this album, which is obviously a little mellower and a little.
Well, is it mellower than?
I don't know if mellow is the word or.
All you need is love, or
Pictures of the two of you.
Softer, yeah. Well, I tell you what, you see, you don't have to atrophy because you get older, if that's the right way of saying that. You see, now the thing about when you get older you become this, if you believe that myth, it's again the belief system of, when we were kids, 30 was death, right? The whole culture was like, right? I'm 40 now and I feel better than before.
You see, I think the whole concept
you can atrophy your ideas of life at 20 or 30 or 40. I know some kids that left school at the same time as me who were, within 6 months of getting a job, were absolutely locked in. You could say conservative. They might have been conservative socialists in England. There's just as many conservatives on the left as there are on the right. It's not a matter of politics, conservative. It's a matter of things. You don't get so emotionally up and down when you're older, because when you're younger, your genes are different, your hormones are different, so it absolutely has to express different. You can become mellower without becoming rigid. I'm still open to anything. I still believe almost in anything until it's disproved. I don't have any set pattern. I don't have any set answers. I'm as open as ever, but I just maybe not so. My hormones don't work the same, that's all.
Look, I think it's totally the opposite. I mean, all these menopausal men are the ones who are really violent, and they're thinking about killing 5 million people. What's mellow about that, And the thing is, young people are in love, and they're tender. I mean, go back to I Want to Hold Your Hand. They're very more mellow songs. What are you talking about? And we're talking about starting over. We're talking about falling in love again to each other, And that's the most beautiful, young, fresh thing to do. Nobody in the menopausal age can do that. And you're having it totally reversed. So this conventional idea that if people are talking about love, that means that they're out of the game, And people who are talking about, I want to kick your pants or whatever, or
I want to kick your pants.
or something like that, or some violent song is right on youth or something. It's a totally wrong idea. The most useful thing is to be in love, to be tender, to know about sensitivity, And as you grow older, you become less sensitive. And then you start thinking about ordering around people, pushing buttons and making the atomic bomb go, So I think your question is already wrong,
I was speaking mainly, and maybe I didn't probably word it correctly, but I was speaking mainly of music in one way.
Oh, I see.
I mean, wait a second.
If you don't mention AC.
Hey, well, listen to Kiss, 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 and she's 47, right? So come on.
But for people, a lot of radio people somehow have this idea that once people reach the age of 25 or 30 and they're appealing to these formats, we can only go very mental, because the people that once wanted to hear Elvis Presley and Little Richard and the Beatles rock and roll, whatever.
I don't believe that, do you?
Now all of a sudden can only lay back and.
If I listen to the oldies, but
only from that.
If the oldies but goldies come on, it's one of my favorites. If I hear Bebop Lou, I can hear it over and over again. Every time it comes on, I switch up the thing, and I have the record still. If I hear Elvis, I heard him singing "I Want You, I Need You, I Love You" the other day. I mean, I was just in heaven. I know, of course I was going back to my youth and remembering the dates and what was going on when I heard that music. So I don't believe that the AC, or what I used to know as MOR, only want to hear Barry Manilow. I think they just as well might enjoy hearing Little Richard.
Oh, but music-wise even, music is just a format, and we're adding many different formats, and that's interesting. But New Wave is going to be old one day too,
Old hat, any minute.
It'll be old hat. The minute it's out there and it's #1, that means that it's old hat, And I think it's nice to discover all different forms of music, and that's nice. But at the same time, that doesn't mean the old form doesn't mean anything. In fact, if a young generation person picked up a very old form like Elvis or something and did it, you wouldn't call it, well, he's mellowing.
I'll give you, for
like that,
instance, Bruce Springsteen's Hungry Heart, which I think is a great record, is, to me, it's the same kind of period sound as Starting Over. I think the Cars Touch and Go is right out of the 50s. All that new wave, a lot of it is 50s stuff. But with the 80s styling, and that's what I think Starting Over is. It's a 50s song made with an 80s approach.
Look, music form never dies, you know, and that goes right back to Chopin or Beethoven or Bach, you know. They're fresh as ever, you know, and so whatever form you use is fine. However you feel then, and it's appropriate to your emotion, that's what you should use.
I never believed that you can like rock or disco. I love disco right from word scratch, and all those complaints about it being all the same is exactly what I heard about Little Richard and Fats Domino. They couldn't tell the difference because the backing was always the same, the saxophones. But you could select from Fats Domino and Richard the best tracks. Lucille as opposed to some one that we can't even remember, right? With the same kind of rhythm. Also now disco is part of the music scene. It's integrated into the whole. It's affected country and western, it's affected pop, it's affected the ballads. It is now part of the music. New wave will be exactly the same. It's another wave that joins the ocean of music.
Forever here,
Yeah.
or did you say anything about that? Or
Well, you know,
We have to make the other album first.
I'd like to make at least, I'm so hungry for making records because of the way I feel. I want to make some more records before a tour, so I'd like to make at least one more album before actually just making that final decision of calling those very expensive session musicians and taking them on the road, you know? Mm-hmm. But when I went in there, I had no intention of going live because I've noticed a lot of people like Clash and things like that don't do any personal appearance hardly anymore, and they just make a video on the record. And so part of me would think, oh, all right. But when we were playing in that studio, and then I don't know whether it was Tony, the bass player, or the drummer, after we'd done Starting Over, he said, can we do this again? I mean, let's take it on the road. And that was the first time it came. I thought, my God, this would be fun, wouldn't it? And if we can do it in the way we've done the album, which is have fun, enjoy the music, enjoy the performance, be accepted as John and Yoko, then I'd be happy to go out there.
in small,
But
large halls?
That's the thing, you see. That's the bit I don't want to think about, you know. I don't know whether Madison Square Garden is what I really want to do, but then can I really go into a small club and am I going to have to deal with, oh, he couldn't make Madison Square Garden anymore. Do I have to care? Do I care? I don't know. But it's certainly a very big possibility that when we get the next album tucked away and people know the songs from Double Fantasy, we can go out and perform from Double Fantasy and the new album rather than having to go back even to Imagine, although we might do it, or even before Imagine. I don't really want to go out and do Yesterday. All my troubles seem so far away. I mean, only if I particularly wanted to do an old Beatles song would I want to do it. I really don't want to get into that, you know.
Great, thank you. We don't want to hold you up.
Oh, what is that?
Presents from Laurie.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. That's very kind. Okay, I'll do it. I'd love to sign it. Yeah, I did the introduction.
I
read it.
on the back. Yeah, that's.
Oh, wow, we love it.
They make them in Godzilla.
Oh,
they
he
make
loves
them in Dragons.
They love monsters, you know. All this peace and love talk. He loves weapons and space fights and all, you know. Yeah, I've got a pen here.
Yeah.
Could you just
I love
sign
the way
this
this
to
went.
Yes.
Debbie?
I really
She
had a
wanted
good time.
to...
Maybe?
It was
You can say
enjoyable.
to
Oh, yeah.
Debbie, hope to...
Same time tomorrow.
Maybe
same
we'll
time
see you
then.
in San Francisco, or she would love that.
When's this going to be on or whatever? I like to listen to these. If I can,
We'll
if
send
I'm,
you a copy.
oh yeah, but I like it. It's never. I like to listen to it. It's like the record. I listen to the test pressing, but I don't really listen till they put it on the radio.
You want to hear it on the radio?
Yeah.
Well, I'll call, John, and I'll find out exactly what
Okay.
stations in New York and at what time.
Okay, great, because it's
Plus,
all.
I'll send you a copy of the whole interview.
I'd love to have that. Yeah, but it's not real unless it's on the radio. It's like the record.
You'll hear it on either WROR or WXLR.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know both those stations.
John, what is your
This is
personal
no good.
opinion
Is
of
it?
Rock Pile?
Yeah, finally.
Probably personally.
Rock Pile, what's that?
Nicola and Dave Edmunds.
Oh, I love Dave Edmunds. I love their stuff. One of my favorite all-time.
About that? I mean,
Maybe this is this will.
It's great. You know, one of my favorite is his
This
version
might
of,
be- let's see.
he did it a few years ago, I Hear You Knocking. One of the great records of all time, man.
This stuff now with Nickelodeon.
Oh, I love their stuff. You know.
You have a ballpoint?
Calling from the record. Yeah, great stuff, great stuff. Here, this one. Oh, no, we need a
No,
ballpoint.
it doesn't work.
Okay.
A ballpoint. It has to be
Yeah,
ballpoint.
it's a little loose there.
Oh, yeah, you see, you know, that, I mean, that was the thing about the Beatles. They never stuck to one style. They never just did blues or just rock. We loved all music. And I still do. I mean, I can get on one.
Rock and rollers.
Yeah, but when I got that image, but when you think I did In My Life, Anna on the early things, and lots of ballady things, you know. It's just that my image was more rocky, you know.
Rock and rollers.
But if you look down those
Let's just
Beatles
do
tracks,
those
I'm
then.
right there with
Sorry.
all the sentimental, just the same as Paul or anybody
doesn't
else. I
work.
love that music just as much. Oh, where's she signed? I don't see it.
This to you?
Who's the poster for?
Ron.
Oh, it's not.
I don't think ink is going to work.
No, this is. Wait a minute. Let's see if it's. Oh, well, look, I don't. Maybe you're going to have to spray it or something. That's why they never make album covers that you can write on either. I'll go over it in ballpoint as well, and then between the two, you'll have the impression, and then you can. Yoko, I'm doing it here right now. Oh, I don't. Why won't it write? Maybe we should do it on a bit of paper, and then you can just sort of stick it on or something. I'll go over it like that, you see, and then.
Yes. Do you have the car right now? Oh, you better
Right.
get
That's good. That's
Some combination of that. Yoko?
it right away.
Yeah, that's always the hard thing about signing things, because they won't write on these things.
Thank you. It does mean a lot.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm a fan of people too, you know. I like people to sign their books when they give them to me and all that. Oh, yeah.
Well, when I come out with my book.
Yeah. Oh, let's see.
Another graphic.
Great. Who's the Santa?